If you're a new coach, you could be making coaching harder than it needs to be, simply because of what you choose to focus on in the session. Harder on you and harder on your client. In the last video, we talked about why coaching feels so hard at first. Now let's talk about what you should actually focus on when you're in the session, because it's probably not what you think. Hey coach, I'm Ronnie Noyes, and on this channel, I share smart ideas for new coaches. Today, I'm going to explain exactly what to focus on during your coaching sessions when you're a new coach, because it's not tools. But most new coaches obsess about coaching tools, the questions they're supposed to ask, the models they learn, the frameworks they think they're expected to use. And that makes sense. Our training emphasizes tools. Tools are tangible. They feel like proof you know what you're doing. But here's what happens. When you're trying to remember which model to use next, your attention gets pulled out of the moment. You're no longer fully present with your client. Instead, you're somewhere else, sorting through your mental toolkit while your client is sharing something vulnerable. You're trying to listen deeply, track time, remember what was said 5 minutes ago, decide what to ask next, evaluate whether you're doing it right, and access the perfect coaching tool in the moment. That's just too much stuff going on at once. Something has to give, and usually what gives is your presence, the very thing your client needs the most. So let me reframe that question. Instead of what tools should I use, maybe you should ask what creates a focused container for both me and my client. In your first coaching sessions, your job isn't to perform well. Your job is to create a steady, focused container, a session where both you and the client know where you are, even if nothing gets completely resolved during that session. When there's a focused container, both of you can relax. There's less guessing, less pressure to make something impressive happen. So instead of trying to do everything, focus on three things that establish a container. First, focus on how the session begins. A clear beginning sets the tone. It helps both you and the client arrive and orient yourself. When the opening is consistent, you don't have to reinvent the session every time. Maybe you start by asking what they want to focus on today. Maybe you begin with a brief check-in. Maybe you review what you explored last time. The specific words matter less than the consistency. When you open the same way each time, both of you know what to expect. And that familiarity reduces anxiety. I've seen coaches, new and experienced, struggle for 10 minutes at the start of every session trying to figure out where to begin. This is unsettling to your client and introduces anxiety and tension at the beginning of a session, which is unnecessary. A nice, calm, clear, consistent opening structure eliminates uncertainty. And in time, it becomes a cue to your brain and your client's brain to shift into session mode. It's really kind of amazing how that happens. Second, focus on presence over performance. You don't need to sound insightful or ask perfect questions. You need to listen. Real listening means noticing patterns, themes, noticing what the client keeps circling back to, even when they think they're talking about something else. Hearing not just the word, but the feeling underneath them. When you're fully present, simple cues, requests, and questions work beautifully. Tell me more about that. What makes that important to you? What are you noticing right now? And even a simple reflection that shows you're with them, that you're listening, works better than trying to be clever and thinking about what you're going to say instead of responding to what your client says. Your client doesn't need you to be impressive. They need you to be steady and genuinely curious about their experience. That's what creates transformation. I know this is hard to trust when you're new, especially if you've built a career on expertise. Coaching is different. Your presence is your expertise here. Third, focus on ending the session cleanly. This is a piece so many coaches overlook, and not just new coaches. They worry about getting to a resolution, to closure, and sometimes even extend the session way over the time scheduled just to deliver a resolution. But that's not how coaching works. It's a process for the client, not a series of wins for the coach. Sessions feel much more complete when there's a clear close. Even if the topic isn't finished, it's okay. The conversation will continue next time. A clean, consistent session ending helps clients integrate what they've explored and recognize that they're taking away something concrete instead of leaving with their heads spinning because you didn't stop to allow them to identify the progress they made in the session. You might say something like, We're coming to the end of our time. What's standing out for you today? Or what's one thing you're taking away? Or maybe even quite simply, what really landed for you today? Now, my closing question, which you may not care for or you may love, was always what sparkled for you. Because I love the idea of closing by shining a light on the real value of the session and ending on a positive note. This is good for your client to pause and briefly reflect on their accomplishments in the session and to recognize on their own their progress toward their goal. When you end cleanly like this, you help yourself too. You can leave the session without carrying everything with you. You create closure, not just for the client, but for your own nervous system. So those are the three anchors of your focused container: a clear beginning, presence over performance, and a clean ending. When you focus on these three things, everything else gets so much quieter. You're no longer trying to prove you're coaching correctly. You're simply yet effectively holding the space for the session. This shift from trying to use all the tools to focusing on creating a container and being present changes everything. Not because the tools don't matter, they do. And you'll naturally integrate them as you get some more experience. But tools work best when they emerge from presence, not when you're forcing or trying to wedge them into the conversation just because you think you should. If you want a practical guide for what to focus on, my Ready to Coach session checklist walks you through exactly what matters before, during, and after each session. So you can stop overthinking, you can stop stressing, and start coaching with a lot more ease. It's completely free and includes a guide to customize it for your practice. The link is below this video. And coming next in this series, video 3 reveals the simple 4-part structure that makes everything I just talked about actually work in real session. It's simpler than you think. Hit subscribe so you don't miss it. Thanks for watching, Coach. I'm Ronnie Noyes, reminding you that today is a great day to be a coach.